Hello and welcome back to Vox Terra, aka Hidden Agendas. Today, the negative aspects or hidden agenda behind aspects of the Big Beautiful Bill, or BBB, which has a different meaning than BBW, some of which have gotten some airplay in dominant media, like the drastic cuts to Medicaid, food and nutrition programs, tax cuts to the wealthy, spending increases, adding trillions to the US deficit. But one part that I think really deserves a lot more attention is the ending the tax incentives to wind and solar and conservation, but not for oil, gas, and nuclear, and the very obvious hidden agenda behind that. The earlier House version went as far as adding a tax on wind and solar. Here's a quote from David Dayen from the American Prospect that I heard on Democracy Now!
And then you'll see not only the loss of most clean energy tax credits, but new taxes that have been described as a kill shot for solar and wind, and we should expect much higher electricity costs and rolling blackouts. Meanwhile, there are the tax credits for the kind of coal that is used in steel, and there's a big tax break for big oil that would allow domestic oil drillers to not pay any taxes at all.
Now, in terms of the final version of the bill, citing to CBS, the law opens up federal lands and waters to oil and gas drilling, mandating 30 lease sales in the Gulf of Mexico over 15 years, more than 30 every year on lands across 9 states, and giving the industry access to Alaska. It slashes the royalties that producers pay the government for pumping oil and gas on federal lands. And in my words, based on reading that article, it flips the intent of carbon capture on its head, in that you get a tax credit if you're doing carbon capture, but you're also producing more oil and gas. It ends the hydrogen tax credit in 2028, but remember, or know, that hydrogen fuel can be green, it can be made from solar and wind, but it can also be made from natural gas or other sources like nuclear. Coal mandates at least 4 million acres of federal land open for coal mining. A tax credit for mining metallurgical coal used to make steel, but not a tax credit for green steel or that made from green hydrogen. Stepping away from CBS for a moment and citing IER, a group that seems happy about this bill, a group that has ties to the Kochs according to DSMOG, it also keeps subsidies to nuclear, and hear this, weakens fuel economy regulations. In other words, use more, and the more you're using is going to be from fossil fuels and nuclear, but not coming from renewables. And speeds up the environmental review process because we're in such a hurry to use more. It does end tax incentives to solar and wind investment production. Back to CBS. Solar and wind farms that start production after 2027, no incentives. Ends tax credit for using US-made components in solar and wind farms for projects that enter service after 2027. So there goes your onshore America. Yeah, onshore America, as long as it's old school, so-called polluting industries, but not for solar and wind. Put this bill in context of a continuing and ongoing attacks on solar, wind, and electric vehicles, conservation, and efficiency. At this rate, we Americans are not leading the way to a greener, less toxic world, but a hotter, more polluted, invariably less stable, more conflict-ridden one. And put that in context, mon ami, with the millions of dollars from fossil fuel petrochemical campaign donations that go to American politicians every year. And out of fairness, politicians in other countries too, I'm sure. But in Estados Unidos, the lion's share goes to the GOP, or the Republicans. Underreported. You and I may share some conservative beliefs, and I hope we do. I hope I'm keeping some of those new subscribers I got who are conservative on here. But what Trump and the Republicans are doing, at least in this regard, and if not others as well, is not about the conservative values we may share. It is about the reckless elements of the oil and gas industry putting on a conservative cloak. Do not fall for it.